effort. And that sounds like it is working. Cool. So welcome, Sonya Willams. Sonya is the co-founder and co-CEO of the online investment platform Sharesies, who are on a mission to create a financially empowered generation. We love this. And they're doing this by giving someone with $5 the same investment opportunities as someone with $5 million. She comes from a career in startups, SaaS, and banking communities where she's led global marketing and product management, specializing in product strategy, customer acquisition, engagement, and retention. Sonya is passionate about creating a world where everyone has equal opportunities to reach their full potential, and how empathy, creativity, innovation can be used to solve big problems. So kia ora and welcome, Sonya.
Kia ora, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being part of today's Lunch and Learn. And we're all here to understand more about investing for our future. What would be great, though, to kick us off is for you to share a bit about Sharesies' backstory and the role that you play at Sharesies.
Yeah, cool. So my role is, as was mentioned, is one of the co-founders and co-CEOs. And what that means is that it does change all the time. We're a really growing company. So I'll talk a bit about our background and how we got to where we are today, and then a bit about what I do to support the team and that growth. So Sharesies started, we're about 4.5 years in now. We started back in 2016. I don't know if people can think that far back, but it was a time where I think the media at the time was talking a lot about millennials not being able to buy houses because they spent all their money on smashed avocado on toast, which was just a bit of a there was this whole boomers versus millennials thing going on in the media. And I just started working in a bank from a career in technology, and was kind of becoming a bit more aware about money. And, one thing that I noticed being in the banks was that house prices were rising, and it was getting more and more difficult to own a property. But when Kiwis think of investing, what they were thinking about primarily was home ownership, buying a home and then potentially buying a second home. But your house was your big investment. And so it was this time when what we all knew about how we grow our wealth was becoming further and further out of reach. And there needs to, started thinking, what's the good news story here? What can we do? And Sharesies was kind of born out of this idea that everyone deserves the opportunity to grow their wealth. And at the time, that wasn't the case. So had this idea to see if we could make investing fun, accessible, and online with small amounts of money. And that idea resonated with the 6 co-founders that started Sharesies. And when we started talking about this idea, we all connected with it personally and decided we wanted to build this and see the impact that this could have. Imagine if we did create this way where investing was accessible to everyone, and we could create this financially empowered generation, which is what our mission is, as you mentioned at the start. So from there, we went out, we talked to people about investing, we talked to people about money, because we needed to know that what we were thinking about would make sense, and there was a real problem here to be solved. And so from that became more and more confident that this could really make a difference, that although money was part of everyone's lives, most people had a negative relationship with it, but that this idea of financial empowerment or being in control of your money. And so really we've created Sharesies with that as its kind of guiding star, I guess, that kind of moves us forward. How do we make money this really empowering experience through making it easy to invest?
Yeah, I can totally relate. I have been, I feel like I'm part of that group for sure, where it's trying to buy a house or look into that. And I know when I started my journey into investing, I'm glad that Sharesies was around when I had begun this journey. Still have not bought a house yet, but we'll get there. Have limited my avocado on toast. But what attracts people to Sharesies? I know that you mentioned it's digital and Yeah, just expanding on that a bit.
Yeah, so 4.5 years in, we've managed to create 420,000 investors on Sharesies who have together invested $1.5 billion. So I think what that means to us is that, we have created this way that makes investing something that people want to do. And I guess thinking about what that is, what we get told as feedback is around it being easy to use and making it easy to get started. And I think the key thing that we had to break down first was this idea that only certain people could be investors. And we saw that in the stats that only 20% of Kiwis had shares, and of that, they're mainly male, over 60, and living in Auckland. So, that's just one part of the population. And when we look at who have been able to attract on Sharesies, 70% of our customers are under 40 and 42% are female. So we're seeing this broader and more diverse investor coming through, which is great to see. So I think the main reasons are about this accessibility. So it's also, you can get started from 1 cent. And so there's no minimum, the cost isn't a barrier. You get access to a global range of investments all in one place. So that's the NZX, the ASX, and as well as US shares. And then the user experience. So I think we really got this chance to create an experience with the investor at the center. And so how would you want to invest? And if we could reimagine investing today and into the future, how would we want that to feel with all the technology that's available to us today? So it's allowed us to do it all online, so no forms and things like that, provide fantastic support, and also through the education side of it. So I think, technology has allowed us to be able to, I guess, really create these opportunities and put the power back to the investor. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think especially since we've moved into such a digital age, and just having those options with, we had COVID, we had to sit at home or stay at home, and we had learned how to do Zoom calls like we are now. And if that meant we couldn't go into a bank or see an investor specialist or something like that, having this option to easily access something which is quite foreign to a lot of people and maybe a bit scary is important to make it accessible and easy. And I know you mentioned that it's for everyone, but are there people that maybe investing isn't for, or are there people that it's specifically for? Who should be investing?
Yeah, and I think probably just worthwhile saying that nothing I'll talk about here today is like personalized advice. Like as you touched on it, everyone's got their own personal situations of where they're at. We'd love to see a world where investing was for everyone, and really looking at what that means. And if you take a broad view to investing, even learning about money is hugely empowering, and that is investing in yourself. So I think when you talk about, who shouldn't be investing, or I think it's more around like if you have the money or if you feel like you're in a position to start investing, even if you don't feel like you're there's still so much to learn, and that's a really great place. I think, more broadly, it's really for anyone who's looking to grow their wealth. And there are some kind of myths or things around that it's for certain people at a certain stage with a certain amount of money. But what we're saying here is that cost doesn't have to be a barrier. Age doesn't have to be a barrier. Knowledge doesn't have to be a barrier. So really, if you're wanting to, no matter what we've learned, and I guess part of the rules of money is that time is far more important than the amount that you invest. So even if you think that it's a small amount, the experience and also the outcomes over that period of time from having your money invested longer will be really beneficial.
Yeah, cool. And like you touched on, there's different levels of a person investing. There's the investing in yourself, there's the education behind it, then there's the physical investing, and also then it depends on how much you may be investing in and where you're investing. And like how does investing help someone with their overall financial well-being? For us at Spring, financial well-being is at the core of what we do, and we're looking at the education side of it, and it would be great to understand how investing could play a part in the person's financial well-being.
Yeah, I think it's first off, it's a really great way to start building your wealth and building your assets. So when you do invest, you're putting your money towards a company and you're investing in that, which is an asset. So it's a great way to diversify your money as well. So if you're getting income, you can then put that income into something because you can save it, or you can invest it. So we typically don't try to say you should do all of one thing. I know you mentioned before about trying to give up your smashed avocado on toast to buy your house. We kind of try to just say it's okay to do it all, like, and bits of it. And I think that's the thing around Sharesies is because we don't have that minimum investment. You can really just invest what you're looking for. So I think it's important to make sure you're spending and you're doing what you like there, that you're saving and then investing. It's just part of your bigger well-being picture or your financial well-being.
Yeah, I love that. And because investing, I don't know, it's always had this taboo or stigma around it. Like you mentioned at the start, that there was a very specific audience or user or someone that was investing, male in Auckland, and now that is shifting towards opening it up towards everyone. And it's still quite a new thing, especially if you're leaving school and everyone's talking about, oh, you should invest, and people are not sure about what they're doing, what's investing about, and they're a bit scared. What do you say to people who are scared about investing?
Yeah, that's a great question because it's always scary to try something new. And I think it's just around making sure that it's not holding you back, but you are being aware of that you are pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And I think it's around, like, how do you get yourself into a place, if it's something you want to do, how do you get yourself into a place where it feels like you can kind of take that first step. So it comes with, you don't need to know it all on day one. I'd say that's what I would say. And getting that experience is a great way to learn. So I would start with an amount that you can afford. I would just be thinking about it that way, that you don't have to kind of be talking about huge amounts of money to even just start the ball rolling. And often when you start, it just leads you to the next question, to the next question, to the next question. And before you know it, you'll be more confident in this space than you ever thought you would be. And we've seen that come through with heaps of the feedback from our investors so far. So really thinking about, give yourself a break. You don't need to do it all. Some people do this as a full-time job, but just because that's the case, it doesn't mean you shouldn't also be empowered to do it too. So just recognizing that you're on day one, and the next day will be day 2, and the next day will be day 3, and before you know it, you'll know more than you thought you would.
Yeah, definitely. And for like something I've learned is just, it does its thing. You pop your money in, or you start off and then you can just sit back and watch it happen, which is always just the best way to learn. And also finding, like, if there are resources or talking to people at Sharesies, are there any specific resources that might help a beginner or someone entering into the investing space, when that would help them feel more comfortable and less scared about investing?
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it, is also making sure you're kind of there is support there. So how we do this, we've created a lot of blogs or content around how to get started, and it does cover lots of questions. When our investors ask us questions, we kind of pull those all and then answer that as a blog. So over the time that we've been here, that we've really created this kind of wealth of information from what people have asked us on their learning journey. The other thing is we do a daily news podcast that goes out every day, and it's called Recap. And this is the top 3, kind of as a guide, top 3 financial news stories. And it's de-jargoned, and it's a way of just trying to help, I guess, bring people into financial news, because it's actually pretty interesting and it's pretty exciting. But I think most of us kind of get pushed away from it because of the jargon. So highly recommend checking out our Recap podcast. The other one is we do a weekly webinar where on a Thursday at lunchtime around 12 o'clock or 12:15, and we bring in, say, a special guest, and it could be the CEO of one of our listed companies here in New Zealand. It could be someone from this US talking about the state of the US economy and markets. What we try to do is go, what's topical? What should our investors kind of need to know about? And just have a conversation out in the open about it. So if you are kind of wondering what questions to ask and things like that, that can be a really good place to start because it's interactive. If you've got questions for those CEOs, you can ask them. And it's a bit around, I call it like inclusive access, where people can get access to things and ask questions in a way that's really inclusive. So, trying to just create these opportunities. And then the other one is we do lunch money newsletter 3 times a week, where we talk about what's been happening in the markets. So that's like a more of a specific, here's what's the movements have been and things like that. So there's lots of broad things. The blog is really, here's some investing principles, and then the news podcasts, the webinar, and the newsletter are more around like, here's what's going on, and here's how you can kind of stay across what's relevant in the markets at the moment.
Yeah, cool. I think it's super important to have a range of different channels so that it can reach a range of different people, because not everyone may be listening to podcasts but may be checking their emails or vice versa. And it's all about removing those barriers, right? If we can make it more accessible, like having these lunch and learn sessions where people can actually talk to a co-CEO of Sharesies and ask questions that may be at the back of their mind, that they've always wanted to know the answers to, and knowing that there are these opportunities and that they're not in it by themselves. Like, there's usually someone else that may have the same question about investing, or where to put their money, or just being clued up. I know, like, if we look at the stock market on your phone and the Apple icon, and that can be daunting by itself, and we don't want that. Making things easier to understand and removing that jargon is just super important and makes it feel like we're all in it together.
I think just to add to that as well, while we're talking about kind of connection and the importance of talking to people, like you touched on it, it used to be really taboo to talk about money, and if I've seen something shift over the last few years, it has been a more openness. And, that's really important. I know people kind of say, oh, well, like, we should be kind of talking to experts and things like that. And yes, there's a place for that. But I think this opening up around talking about money is really, really special and really important, because it's like, the more we are talking about it with each other, the more we're all kind of leveling up. And then the more we can kind of know what's best for us, or know what we don't know about things, and we start to become a bit more curious. So I definitely think this talking to each other and actually learning from each other is a really important thing that's been going on in parallel to all of this as well.
Oh, yeah, totally. It's the human way of doing things, right? We learn from each other, we share stories by talking with each other, and we should be talking more about money and removing that stigma. Definitely agree. When it comes to investing, and I know it's around in the share market, and we touched on it before around it being daunting because there is like all this stigma, all this taboo about talking about it, and that means that we might step back from it, or we just aren't sure because we haven't been given this education, or we haven't been talking about it. And from you, what are some of the common misconceptions when it comes to investing and the share market?
Yeah, I think great question. I think we've touched on it a bit, but that it's for a certain type of person, like I think, or that we can't all be investors. So and I think we're seeing that change, and technology is really enabling a lot of that, about being able to make sure that we're lowering the barriers of entry and increasing the experience actually for everyone. And I think technology's done that in a range of industries, and you know, obviously I get most excited about how it's doing that in the money space, through the experience, but also, you know, the education and knowledge and all of that stuff. So definitely that it's for a certain type of person. That can also mean, you know, needing a lot of money. That's one of the ones that comes through as well, that you need a lot of money to invest, and that can be true in some, you know, if you choose to invest in certain ways. But you know, we have really seen the minimum needed to invest, like on Sharesies, it's 1 cent. For other places, it can be like they've really dropped it. Into other places, it can be kind of 10,000 per investment. But I think this idea that you need lots of money, it is more about that whole picture and going, how much from what I'm getting do I want to allocate towards growing my wealth and growing my assets, no matter how much that is for you at that time.
Yeah.
I think the other one is that it's risky. So people do kind of worry that it's risky, and there is risk involved. And what I would probably say is it's more about how you manage the risk. You know, everything has risk. So it's more about like, do you know what those risks are, and how are you managing it? And you know, investing does have risk, but there are ways to balance that risk, and there are things that you can do to make sure you are balancing that risk. One of them is we've probably all heard the analogy, you know, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And that's the same for investing. That's about making sure that you've got a diverse portfolio. And that's a way of balancing your risk, for example. The other one, and maybe this is a bit more of a thing, but it's a get rich quick scheme. You know, for Sharesies, we there's different ways that people invest, but for us, you know, we don't say we're a get rich quick scheme. We think investing is for the long term, and it's more about building yourself up to where you want to go, and having that future that you want for yourself. So we often just encourage people to, you know, choose investments that you think, yeah, cool, this is 10 years. This is 10, what do I think this company is going to be doing in 10 years time? What do I think the world's going to look like in 10 years time? And really take that lens to it, because the markets do move every day. Investments do go up and down. But if we take that longer lens, then, you know, it definitely takes the need out of like watching or feeling the need to respond to every little thing that's going on. So those would be some key kind of, you know, myths or things out there.
Love that. And just touching on the future, and I know that's hard to think of sometimes, especially maybe depending on your situation. Looking too far ahead in the future may be difficult, or just thinking, you know, we're not fortune tellers and we can't figure out what's going to happen in the future. But what do you see for the future of maybe Sharesies to begin with? What would you love to see?
Yeah, cool question. And I love just sometimes sitting and thinking, oh, what's the future gonna be like? Because it's true, none of us know. And I think if we were sitting here even a year and a half ago and going, you know, we wouldn't have predicted COVID and the impact that that's had on the world, and on New Zealand. But for Sharesies, what you know, what I'd love that future to look like, and I think what we all strive for, is this idea where money is this really empowering thing for people. For everyone, and that it's almost just like a tool to help you live the life that you want to live, and that you're supported, you know, through technology to be empowered by money, because it is a thing. You know, when we were doing our research, the words that came up were things like shame and guilt, and these are people from all different backgrounds with all different amounts of money, and you know, I think that money is a part of everyone's lives. And so it's like how we change that relationship and how we turn it into this thing that is a tool, and that we all have the knowledge for what's best for us. Because I think that's the other thing is, with money, like no, our goal, money and goals are so tied together, of the type of life we want to lead, and we all know that that doesn't look the same for everyone, and so our money plans shouldn't really look the same either. So I think it's about feeling empowered and then having the tools and support that we need to make it us be able to have the life that we want to live.
Oh, love that. Yeah. One of the things that someone said to me recently is that money is a universal language, or it is universal. It's something that everyone can somehow relate to. And again, just throwing back to that whole thing around removing that stigma, like, we should be talking about this because it's something that we can all relate to, more than probably anything else. And it may be unfortunate sometimes, or it may be it's an exciting thing, and just turning that so it isn't such a scary, sad thing to think about into something that can actually help and grow our own well-being as well. Love that future for Sharesies. And what about investing in New Zealand? What do you see the future for investing in New Zealand looking like?
Yeah, I think that's a good question as well. I think that investing continues to grow and become more and more mainstream. Like I just love the stories that I hear of like kids investing, of people that you wouldn't really think investing, doing it and giving it a crack, and then building their own confidence and their own knowledge. So I think that's a bit of a continue. Like I'd love to see the future of investing continue to be more diverse and more mainstream. And I think the reason that's really interesting is about why I think we care so much, or one of the reasons around growing, or one of the impacts that we'll have through having a more diverse investor base, is also the things that people invest in are so personal. It aligns to your goals and your values of the type of world you want to be creating. And we know how much impact companies and organizations have on the world that we live in. And so if we've got people investing in these companies that come from a diverse range of values and backgrounds, we might see it at what kind of world are we living in there, where people are really investing in these companies. Sharesies itself is a proud B Corp, which means it's a business for purpose and for profit. And we see lots of companies moving in this way. And so I think, this whole idea that shareholders are able to then invest in things and really championing the causes that they love, championing the type of world they want to live in. I get really excited about the power that is in that, and what might come from that, and seeing, what changes might come from that. And I think the other one is just around how this experience continues to improve with the use of technology and how technology evolves. Because, we talk a lot about the getting started experience and how, and that is a real focus and is a really important thing to change. But we've also got to acknowledge that the investing experience isn't that great, even if you have lots of money. So there's this thing where technology and the more kind of finance and technology can come together, I think, because also as well, those people that are joining with $5 will hopefully be growing that, and, through the wealth development kind of Sharesies. And so it's around how technology actually levels up the investing experience. I think that's a future that I get really excited about as well.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And one of the points around, it's such a reminder about we're investing in companies, and this is your money that's going to actually shape the way that our country or our world is actually going to grow or become, because if we're investing in certain companies or certain industries, that's going to enhance that particular area. So there is more than just growing your own money. You're actually creating a bigger impact than we may even not realize, and that's really cool to remember. Cool. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to jump into the Q&A. I see there's a couple of questions already. And we'll see. Are there any tips on how to hear the audio? Oh, sorry if you weren't able to hear the audio now that we're half an hour in. Hopefully you've been able to figure that one out. The other one is the Thursday podcast on Sharesies' social media account.
I think we do promote it on social media. Yes, we do promote it. I'm getting the nod. Yes, we do promote it on our social media accounts.
Cool.
So you'll be able to see that. And this week there is one. It is for Money Week, and we have a great panel lined up to be talking about that.
Awesome. And Nigel has said that he set up his 10-year-old daughter last year and she loves it. Every week she asks to check her balance and she knows it's for when she's 18 and really excited about it. Oh, that's super cool, Nigel.
Love that. Thanks, Nigel. And what a cool gift of experience as well that you're giving to your daughter around that conversation. And just, it took me ages actually to understand how the kind of world works and in this space. And, obviously would have loved to learn it earlier. And, I think one of the things about investing, that we learned early on was, people struggled to picture what it was and really struggled, like this kind of intangible nature of it, or it felt really intangible. And I think it is really interesting to kind of break that down and go, all of these companies, people go to work there every day. Your income is most of the time your biggest asset. So it's this idea that people are going to work there every day. We know that, so in New Zealand, we can see the planes and we know kind of we're around it. We know what they are. So we're surrounded by these companies. They are as tangible as a house. So I think, really awesome that you're painting that picture. I know when I talk to my nieces and nephews about this as well, it's like these are products that they use and that can be really engaging to be like, well, you can own that company.
Right? Yeah, like I can actually buy a bit of Disney. That's pretty cool.
Hard out.
Awesome. There's another question here. Where does your team look to get all the business news / tips from that are shared in the podcast / newsletter, etc.?
Oh, that's a good question. I actually have, Jose, do you mind if I ask you where you get tips? He's right. He runs our recap podcast.
Like all the major kind of financial, like CNBC for America. Come on.
Yeah, come on in.
Sorry to bust in. Yeah, we tend to go, like I always go like for local stuff, go like Business Desk or interest.co.nz, and then obviously stuff in the Herald. Also look overseas. Australia, tend to go to Financial Review over in Australia for the ASX stuff, and a couple of other places that I can't quite remember. And then for America, there's so much of that out there, Yahoo Finance or CNBC as well is quite good.
Thank you.
Jose. So, yep, straight from the horse's mouth. Jose actually runs the podcast, so yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's handy. Have a friend in the room. And another one, I watched the FMA debate, very quick debate, unfortunately. Anything else Sharesies wants to add about DIY versus using experts?
Yeah, well, good on you. Thank you for watching the debate. It was my first debate and, pretty interesting topic. I think, what do I want to add to that? I think, what I really take away from that is, there is room for everyone. Like I think it's a bit of a yes and approach. But I think we do have to acknowledge that like most people don't have advisors or don't have access to advisors. And I think we're really underweighting the value of technology in putting the power in people's hands. And I think that's something that we really believe in, and that we do believe that people, have the capability to really grow and understand and are the best place to decide what to do with their money. But I don't think that, that should be the only approach. I think that you should also have options. The same way we, can choose to eat out for dinner or to make our own food. It's a bit about what's right for you, what's right for what you're trying to achieve at the time. But I do think, the more we can provide access to knowledge about investing and about money, the more empowered people will be. So thanks for watching the debate. That's really cool.
That's awesome. Thank you. Another question around, would you invest differently depending on age? So for example, invest in different shares for a teenager versus someone in their 30s.
Yeah, I think the way I would probably look at that is one thing that does impact your investments is how long you're looking to invest for. So it's not necessarily age, but it's kind of like when do you want to get that money out? And that's because, markets do go up and down, and there are some different types of investments that, say, shares, for example, could be more risky than something like bonds, which is more of kind of a slow growth. But there's always this relationship between risk and reward. And so what you're really trading off there is, in some of the questions, I think we've got some great blogs that help you identify what's best for you to make the right investment choice for you, because it is so personal. But yes, age does come into it if it changes, when you're wanting to get that money out. So more so it's when you're wanting to get that money out.
Cool. And another question, in what main ways does Sharesies differ / what makes Sharesies special in comparison to other investment platforms like Hatch, Invest Now, Simplicity, Kernel Wealth, etc.?
Yeah, great question. And thanks for asking. Really around this access, so you can invest in all these global markets from 1 cent and really build your portfolio in one place. I would also say the amount of education and support we have around the investing experience. So as I mentioned, the podcast and the blog and all of this. So it's not just the product itself, but it's also the support around it. But huge is being able to invest from 1 cent in all those global markets in one place. We're also a B Corp, so it's a purpose for a business for purpose and profit.
Awesome. Cool. And can Sharesies make / set its own index fund / ETFs at lower fees than others, such as Smart Shares, and which also are available in Sharesies, Simplicity, etc.?
Yeah, this isn't something we do at the moment, but obviously, we don't really put anything off the table for our future. If we think that there's something that really adds value to our investors, we tend to find a way to do that, and that becomes part of our future journey. So if there is anything specific that you're looking for, we are really responsive in our customer support through our feature requests and things that you'd love to see. So and we do really listen to all of that feedback that comes through. So if you see an opportunity for us or something that would help make your experience better, just let us know.
There you go. Great way. And that's cool to hear that you're listening to your customers. That's awesome. And for someone that is listening and is ready to invest, they're ready to jump onto the Sharesies platform, what advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I would say just give it a crack. And I'd say, so pick an amount you're looking to invest, sign up. You can go to sharesies.com and just create an account. You do it all online. So I would say just get started, and there's lots of support along the way.
Awesome. Cool. And we haven't got any more questions popping up. There is. Is the process of withdrawing your funds in your Sharesies account straightforward?
Yep. So you just need to say that you want to withdraw your money, and first you have to sell the investments. Then once that goes into your wallet, we then pay that out to you. So yeah, hugely straightforward.
Awesome. Cool. And waiting to see if there's any more questions. This is definitely the time to pop them in. Awesome. Cool. Well, I think we can call that potentially the end of our Lunch and Learn session. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing so many nuggets around. Oh, there's another question. Do you sell your investments back into the market or to another Sharesies user?
They do go back. Well, that could be the same thing, but they do go back onto the market. So we do. We've got some great blogs about how our investing process works, and which I can probably dig out and share, actually, if you want to share that around.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, we can grab those off you and share them out as well if you're keen. We'll be actively posting stuff on our socials and in our newsletter. So this will also include a recorded version of today's session. Cool. Do I give it 2 seconds more before I end? Yeah.
We call it there.
Cool. The first question from Natu is, would you recommend investing into a kid's Sharesies account over a term deposit?
I think it depends on what you're trying to achieve. So I probably can't advise you on what is better for you at that point. So yeah, I mean, you do a bit of both. But yeah, I think it depends on what you're trying to achieve. As Nigel has set out, like, it's really interactive and there's lots of other benefits to investing. I'd be pretty biased to say the earlier, getting kids investing is a really great thing. So yeah, I think if that's an option for you, that's pretty cool.
Oh. And in terms of this last question, how do we find the recorded session? So we will download and save the recorded session, and we'll be putting a link to the recorded session on our socials. So our Spring Instagram and our Facebook and LinkedIn, as well as also our newsletter. So we'll be sending that out on our end, and yeah, it's really cool, and I found this session super valuable. And not a question, but thanks, Sonya and team at Sharesies. You guys are amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, you guys are pretty cool.
Thanks for having me on here, and for everyone who asked the great questions or even just listened in. Thanks heaps for your support.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sonya. And thank you to everyone that has come for this Lunch and Learn webinar. And tomorrow we have a session with Mentor Mia, and that is around Financial Wellbeing 101s. And so if you're a Mentor Mia customer or a Spring customer, you should have received a link as to how to access that. And it's also another recorded session. So the same way I've just said, we'll be sharing that. But thank you so much for taking part and sharing your knowledge around investing for our future.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Ka kite.